There is disturbing and dangerous rhetoric coming from socialist Democrats tonight that should be of grave concern to all Americans. It is my firm belief that Democrats are using divisive and cancerous rhetoric that threaten the republic itself. Democrats appear to be pushing for civil war. That's the somber message we're delivering in tonight's preamble. I'm troubled by the false and corrosive rhetoric coming out of the mouths of American leftists. Exhibit A, self-avowed socialist Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. On Twitter yesterday, Cortez denounced the Robinhood app. The app, in an unfair and transparently elitist move, prevented day traders from undertaking certain transactions with certain stocks, like GameStop stocks. While that was going on, huge hedge funds suffered no restrictions on their trading activities. Mark it on the calendar, folks. I agree with AOC. She's right. This perversion of the golden rule, he who has the gold rules, has sadly bastardized the rule of law or the rules of fairness in our country and allowed many elites, whether they be in Congress or on Wall Street, to get special treatment even when they didn't earn it. When Texas Senator Ted Cruz also agreed with AOC, the socialist responded this way on Twitter. I'm happy, quote, I'm happy to work with Republicans on this issue where there's common ground, but you, meaning Cruz, almost had me murdered 3 weeks ago, so you can sit this one out. Happy to work with almost any other GOP that aren't trying to get me killed. In the meantime, if you want to help, you can resign, end quote. There are all kinds of wrong with what AOC just did. First, we know the Democrats are allowed to lie while they're performing their duties. In a complete betrayal and lowering of the bar, lies uttered by members of Congress while they're performing their official duties are protected from prosecution. Case in point, Adam Schiff, lying about President Trump's phone call with the president of Ukraine, was allowed to lie because he did so while performing his official work as a congressman from California in the House of Representatives. Now, most Americans recognize how disgusting this standard really is. In truth, we should expect a higher bar of integrity from lawmakers when they are allegedly doing the people's work. Sadly, both the Republicans and the Democrats agree to protect members of Congress who lie while they're on duty. However, AOC accused Senator Ted Cruz of trying to have her killed, and she did so on Twitter. Now, this is my amateur reading of the law. I'm not a lawyer, don't even pretend to be one. But this false and libelous attack from AOC against Cruz should earn her, in my opinion, a swift and punishing lawsuit courtesy of Senator Cruz. One other thing, perhaps AOC never heard the name Steve Scalise. That was the Republican congressman who was nearly killed by a crazed Bernie Sanders supporter who opened fire on Republicans as they practiced for an annual congressional baseball game. By AOC standards, Democrats should have resigned for inspiring such actions. But AOC is part of a more frightening trend and seemingly coordinated trend. According to an article in Politico, House Democrats are pushing a unified narrative. They are saying they can no longer work with Republicans. Alleged Representative Dan Kildee, a Democrat socialist from Michigan, said, quote, I've really been struggling with it. I have a hard time interacting with those members right now, especially with those I had a closer relationship with. I'm not going to deny the reality that I look at them differently now, end quote. Alleged Representative Pramila Jayapal, Socialist Democrat from Washington, says, quote, I don't know if that's repairable. It is certainly a massive chasm that exists right now between a large majority of the Republican caucus and all of us Democrats across the ideological spectrum, end quote. And then there's Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, the Democrats' leader in the House of Representatives. She referred to Republicans saying, quote, the enemy is within. Now keep in mind, as Democrat supporters have rampaged through our streets for months now, not one Republican has called on Democrats to be thrown out of government. As BLM and Antifa terrorists have destroyed, burned, looted, beaten, and killed their way through America's cities, not one Republican has suggested that working with Democrats would be impossible after all that left-wing violence. Keep in mind, as whole communities have cowered from Democrat socialist-inspired violence. Not one Republican has suggested that Democrat voters be denied their representation in government by throwing out their elected socialists. But that's exactly what Democrats are saying. Democrats are openly calling for millions of Americans to lose their representatives in Congress based on fake charges. And the Speaker is now calling our representatives, and by extension us, the enemy within. In my opinion, Democrats' dangerous rhetoric, their vacuous charges, and feigned fear are pushing America toward a civil war. The question remains, why? Many on the Republican side have noted on many occasions that Democrats have disarmed their voters through irrational fears of firearms. Those same Republicans rationalize they would be foolhardy for Democrats to pick a civil war fight that they would assuredly lose. But the Democrats wouldn't be alone. Now, can you folks think of a nation on the planet Earth that would benefit from, be elated by, or pushing for an American civil war? I can. That's right. Joe Biden's buddies, China. If America is pushed into a civil war by the Democrats, that will benefit the world's most inhuman, racist slave state, China. The policy course charted by socialist Democrats is counter to American freedom, liberty, and prosperity. Their rhetoric may threaten our very existence, the republic itself. Someone should wake up Mitt Romney, Pat Toomey, and Ben Sasse.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.